Hey everybody, Alex Kazor, SteelersDepot.com, back with another Pittsburgh Steelers analysis. And I asked you guys in the community tab last week what you guys wanted to see this offseason. Many of you guys said you wanted to see some Pittsburgh Steelers mock drafts. So that is what I have for you guys today. My first mock draft dropped on Monday morning over on Steelers Depot. I will leave a link in the description with the full text. So if you guys want to read exactly all of my thoughts, you can. There's some others considered are also in that article. So today we're just going to kind of run through first stab at a mock draft. Obviously, things will change probably pretty significantly over these next couple of months. My first crack at it. I apologize. I don't have any video to include in this video. I'll do a slideshow of players or something like that. But because of copyright reasons, if I put video college football highlights in, probably get a copyright strike for that. So I don't want to do that. So that is the reason why it's just going to be pictures coming across the screen in all likelihood. But without further ado, my mock draft first attempt for the Pittsburgh Steelers 2021 draft. In the first round, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 24 overall, taking Alabama offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood. I think this is going to be one of the more oft projected and predicted players to Pittsburgh at 24, at least one of the top offensive tackles. I think offensive line overall is probably the most likely route this team will go as we sit here today, with the assumption that Alejandro Villanueva is going to be playing elsewhere in 2021. Matt Fowler also may leave too. We know the recent reporting and rumors that were surrounding Marquise Pouncey in his retirement, so that could also certainly increase the odds of center being taken because that'll be a definite need if Pouncey hangs up his cleats with Villanueva, your franchise left tackle. I think still some people underrate how valuable Villanueva has been, just being a franchise left tackle for 5 straight years. Dude basically never missed a snap, and so to lose that and try to find someone in house is basically impossible. You could shift a core for it over, but he may stay at right tackle. And honestly, in some respects, I kind of like him better in a swing role, but he'll probably be starting somewhere along the offensive line. So going with Leatherwood to basically just replace Villanueva as a day one starter, potentially a 40 game starter for the Crimson Tide SEC competition. The best offensive lineman in college football, won the Outland Trophy in 2020. He's athletic, he's lean, but he's plays with violent hands, a good run blocker, just a really well-rounded guy, versatile. Started his career at right guard when Jonah Williams was there in Alabama, future first-round pick of the Bengals, then kicked out to left tackle once Williams left for the NFL draft. So Leatherwood, I think, is a position of need, a talent, and in some ways reminds me of Villanueva. Obviously, he's not as physically imposing in the sense that Villanueva was 6'8" and 330 and just kind of a really rare frame, but Leatherwood has kind of that leaner build to him, a little bit on the taller side with some really violent hands, a great chop that Villanueva shows as well. So I think overall you'll see the Steelers team get really serious about addressing the offensive line, the run game, certainly areas this team will focus heavily on this offseason. So Leatherwood, I think, makes as much sense as anyone at number 24. All right, round two, number 55 overall. And some of these overalls are going to be a little bit more rougher in projections as we go on throughout the mock. But I have the Steelers taking Memphis running back Kenneth Gainwell. And Gainwell's a name I haven't really heard linked with Pittsburgh too much in terms of mock drafts. Obviously, everything's speculation and projection right now. But I think he's a really good fit for this offense, especially if, say, a Matt Canada, assuming he becomes offensive coordinator, not set in stone yet, but that is where things likely seem to be going. A guy like Gainwell that's explosive, kind of using that gadget sense in that Memphis offense, but really productive. And if you look at the success of guys like Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, Gainwell kind of cut from a similar cloth. 51 receptions in 2019. Obviously, had a ton of success on the ground as well. Did not play in 2020 due to COVID concerns. Reportedly lost four family members due to the virus, so that's understandable why he wanted to sit out the season. Only 1 year production, but that 1 year in 2019, ton of production. And I think he's a guy that can be used in that, kind of jet sweep type of offense, a big playmaker, someone explosive in the run game, certainly something the Steelers need. Yes, and Anthony McFarland could offer that. And I still have hope and optimism about McFarland, even though his rookie year was quiet, redshirt sophomore, it's a tough transition. I'm not going to be too critical of it, but McFarland's presence is not going to stop his team from taking a running back. I think they will take one between rounds 2 through 4, potentially at 24 as well. But assuming they go offensive line, running back really makes a lot of sense here. He's potentially a fit in really all areas in terms of receiving, in terms of obviously being a runner, potential blocker, big playability, just adding things this team doesn't have or doesn't have a good enough of. And so I kind of view him as a idealized version of Jalen Samuels, someone that can kind of be that every, facet, every aspect type of back, but a lot more explosive, a lot bigger plays. And I think this makes a lot of sense at 55 overall. Moving on to round three, 88 overall, I have the offensive line being addressed again. Again, certainly even more of a focus with Marquise Pouncey's potential retirement with Trey Hill, the center from Georgia. Focus for Pittsburgh. I'll say this a million more times throughout this offseason is offensive line, run game. The Steelers had the worst run game basically since 1966. You can guarantee you're going to see heavy investments into trying to fix that. I think Trey Hill makes a lot of sense. 6'4", 330. You want guys who are physical. Maulers in the run game are going to be more stout at the point of attack, and not too often you find a 330-pound center from the SEC. Hill started his career at Georgia, at Georgia, but also at right guard is what I was trying to say. Before kicking inside to center, there were some injury concerns there. I think he had arthroscopic surgery on both knees that ended his 2020 season, like 8 games in. So there were some medical concerns there. Hopefully, Steelers can have an evaluation of that, despite no combine and those things being a little tougher to gauge this year. But you want a mauler, you want a guy that's battle tested, someone that's going to again help your offensive line potentially immediately if Pouncey retires. But even if not, he'll offer quality interior depth, potentially at all three interior spots: left, right, guard, and of course center. Because there really isn't much there, assuming that Filer is gone, or even if Filer resigns, he probably plays right tackle, so he's no longer an interior guy. Of course, he can shift inside, but Kevin Dotson being elevated to left guard really leaves you pretty thin along the interior after this team lost Fred Johnson in 2019, and Derwin Gray, both guys being poached in the last 2 years. Round four, 119 overall. We are addressing defense for the first time in this mock draft with Elijah Molden, the cornerback from Washington. I think a really good slot fit for a team that is highly likely, almost guaranteed to lose at least one of Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton, potentially even both. Ideally, one of those guys gets re-signed. Sutton is the more likely option, but you want to have good depth there. Now, I'll be honest. I'm still, learning this draft process and kind of, learning more about these guys. I get a late start in these things because the regular season. Molden, I think, is someone that could probably go a round or two higher, but I don't think it's impossible that he would slip a little bit. And if he does, I think he's a really good slot corner for the NFL. And so that's my projection there. There are still some in-house options, and Antoine Brooks Jr. I think showed something as a rookie. He can kind of work in that big nickel type package, but you got to add some depth there. Cornerback, maybe Molden can play outside as well. Obviously, Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson entering the final years of their contracts right now. So maybe some potential flexibility for Molden to play inside or out, but just overall good depth and finally addressing defense here. And just a quick point on Molden, 3-year starter for Washington, had 4 interceptions 2 years ago, and so you get some splash plays and a guy with a good resume, and so that's why I specifically went after Elijah Molden. Staying in the fourth round, I am giving the Pittsburgh Steelers a fourth round comp pick for the loss of Javon Hargrave. Comp picks are not official yet. I know one projection from Over the Cap, the best source for that stuff, gave the Steelers a fourth and a sixth, but the fourth only seems to be the safe, realistic one right now. So that'll be the only comp pick I give them for this mock draft until it becomes official. But with that selection, I have the Steelers taking tight end Tony Poljan from Virginia at 6'7", 265. Very rare to see tight ends of that size in the college game. He was a guy that was used in a pro style offense, traditional, attached Y inline tight end, playing the 3-point stance, used in pass pro. His pass pro, honestly, may be one of the best traits of his game, which maybe is the most ringing endorsement for a tight end. I bet there were some scouts that think you could turn him into an offensive tackle. He is a build up speed type guy, but he does have good hands, really good production. Started his college career at Central Michigan, so a MAC guy. Steelers love those MAC guys, and then transferred to Virginia. Had a strong 2020 season. I don't like to lean on, the last time I took a guy from this college, it worked out because it means nothing. But the last time the Steelers took a tight end from Virginia with Heath Miller, turned out pretty well. So Poljan, I think, fits what the Steelers look for. Well, I would prefer more of a receiver, but this tight end class does not have a ton of depth. And so if you can't get a Pat Fryermuth or a Kyle Pitts early in this draft, and again, given the investments in the offensive line, which is where I think the priority is going to be, you have to kind of pick an option here, a lesser option in the mid rounds. I think Poljan, though, is a really good fit for what the Steelers look for. Jumping to the sixth round, 189 overall, have the Steelers going back on defense, addressing the edge rusher spot with Charles Snowden from Virginia. So another Virginia player mocked in the draft. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about Snowden right now. I just know this position of need with really a lack of depth, assuming Bud Dupree walked, which is almost a certainty. right now. And while I like Oladini as a special teamer, I do view him as a number four special teamer, not a number three rotational guy. Not saying that Snowden would change that too much, but it could at least provide some competition there. So behind Watt and Highsmith will be your starting outside linebackers next year in 2021. Just not a lot of depth there. And obviously, you saw the lack of depth be exposed after Dupree went down. Highsmith played well, but there wasn't a lot of rotation, not a lot of success behind those guys. So I think just kind of your typical, let's go ahead and draft an outside linebacker and go from there. Seventh round, 210 overall. I'm going old school with fullback Ben Mason from Michigan, considered the best fullback in this class, whatever that statement is worth in today's 2020 and spread system of college football. But if I could get a Ben Mason, I would dump Derek Watt and basically make Mason the new Derek Watt. Mason's gotten a lot of comparisons to Baltimore's Patrick Ricard, where they're big, stocky, elite blockers, former defensive linemen, special teams guys as well. And that's basically been Ben Mason, 6'3", 254 is how they list him. Has impact in special teams. I think he's got multiple, seven tackles. I think a couple years ago on that unit, and in 2018, dude had 33 carries, seven touchdowns. So potential short yardage option as well. Pittsburgh, the worst get a yard offense the last 2 years. Even with Ben's return, they still couldn't get a yard in third and one, fourth and one, goal line type stuff. So I'm not saying Mason is the cure to all that, but maybe one to two plays he can help as a lead blocker or even as a ball carrier. So I think Mason kind of fits. Michigan guy, Steelers love drafting those guys up at Schembechler Hall, and it would allow you to move on from Derek Watt and go with a cheaper option on a 4-year deal as opposed to Watt, who's only got what I think a year after 2021. Finally, seventh round, 219 overall. I'm going Erroll Thompson, inside linebacker from Mississippi State. Vince Williams, I think, could be a potential cap casualty, especially if the cap number comes in that $180 million range, which is what's being speculated right now. And so Thompson's not going to move the needle there too much, but kind of a similar guy to Vince, 6'1", 250, downhill thumper, 312 career tackles for the Bulldogs, two-time captain. So potential special teams guy that maybe works his way up the ladder. Obviously, seventh round, last pick. Not going to expect a whole lot, but I think add some depth on defense. So that is my 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers mock draft version 1.0. Let me know what you guys think. I did not take a receiver in this mock draft, and obviously they certainly could, and they generally do in all but three of Kevin Colbert's drafts since 2000. This team has taken a receiver, and obviously if Juju walks, then that creates a pretty big need at the slot receiver spot without a real clear in-house option. I just couldn't find a place to make him fit. I mean, you could throw him in there in the seventh round, maybe sixth round as well. But how much does that really move the needle? Probably not a lot. And I do think there's still a better chance that a Juju gets re-signed as opposed to an Alejandro Villanueva, for example, or both cornerbacks getting signed is unlikely to happen, almost guaranteed to not happen. I think there is a chance they find a way to bring Juju back again. That is, I think, pretty highly dependent on where the cap comes in at. But I do think that's what they'll make an effort to if they could re-sign maybe a Cam Sutton and a Juju. And I'm getting a little bit greedy there, but I know that you could certainly make a good case for a slot receiver coming in. I do think you can play Claypool in the slot more next year. All those guys kind of got more work in the slot this year. They weren't as stuck in their X, Z, and F positions. The F is the slot in Pittsburgh, so there's some more versatility there than past years. But certainly you could argue putting a receiver in instead of the outside linebacker in the sixth round or one of the seventh round picks as well. You could slot a receiver in. Just hard to find that big slot guy that is like Juju, and so I don't have a receiver being taken in this draft, but again, I'm sure you can state the case for it in the comments below. So that is my mock draft. Again, let me know your thoughts. I'll put the final, mock drafts, all their names here in one place right here for you guys to recap and revisit. And I'm sure this will change plenty throughout this process, although with a lack of combine and who knows how pro days will go, the information this year in terms of the Steelers' interest and, just the general knowledge of these guys is going to be more limited than past years. But we'll continue to do our best. We'll have another mock draft probably in a couple weeks once some different things happen in terms of potential retirements and re-signs and cuts and however those things go over the next couple of weeks. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you soon.